what you said, Mark. I did watch the video, replay of that video, and having any number of people in the library at one time, I think, is going to be problematic. I heartily disagree with appointments to monitor the number of people, because you have to clean. I mean, how many times a day are you cleaning? At least what, 3 times a day? And another thing I think we need to do if we do have appointments is to restrict seating in the library space. I've seen discussions or heard discussions about isolating soft furnishings so people don't lounge or touch things. Also, appointments perhaps for computer use. I know some people don't have computers at home. I know, in the normal times, people would come in and they'd use the computer for, half an hour or an hour at a time. I mean, if those people would like to have appointments, then we can clean the computers after their use before, say, the next person. It's easier than perhaps purchasing the plastic keyboard covers and God knows what else.
If you're done, are you done, Fern? Because I didn't
Yeah,
want to interrupt.
Yeah.
I agree with both of you. I feel like the first phase is probably not to have appointments, not to allow anyone. And I think that's coming up with a plan is a very gradual thing. So while appointments might be nice, the one thing he did say with the cleaning is that he was very clear that it isn't just about cleaning. There's cleaning and there's sanitizing, and things don't need just to be cleaned. They also need to be sanitized at the same time. And I think that might be what will be problematic to start with. The other thing with the wipes is he very specifically said the wipes are great, but he said that hand washing is better. And I have one question. Does the library have 2 bathrooms or just 1?
Yes, we have 2.
Okay, because that was one thing that there was a concern about, is whether there was a bathroom that was available to the public that the staff would not have to use. But again, there's not just the matter of cleaning, but also cleaning and sanitizing.
Isn't this the bathroom by the meeting room being used for sanitizing return materials?
Currently, it's our quarantine zone. I forget what the initials are supposed to be.
So
but
we're still going to need a quarantine zone for returned items.
We can certainly modify that. I wonder if I'm trying to think of the right way to get my fingers around all this. What would be the first thing that we could offer? Because I think it's going to be like we're talking phases, and I'm thinking really small steps so we can learn what the problems are, anticipating as many as we can. I'm kind of convinced that as people are coming in to the state, there's really no enforcement of isolation or quarantine that Vermont is going to see, it pick up, unfortunately, even before there's some sort of big peak, second wave or something. But what would we try to do if we could do one thing, or what would be one of our first things? Because I think having a full-blown open hours or multiple groups at once might not be the first step.
Ben, I might suggest.
Dan.
Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, Carrie.
All right, this is pulling from Thursday's meeting and some of what you all are saying and the phases and the steps. The first thing we need to do is just get the staff inside to see the space and to brainstorm. And it's possible that a trustee or two can come in at the same time. It still doesn't overburden our number of 10. And we can stand in different corners and look at the room.
Carrie,
But
just
what comes to mind after we've had that week of just staff looking at it with eyes of what is our next step? One thing that I never considered is something, it's kind of old fashioned. Libraries now most libraries let their patrons browse. But it used to be that it was closed stacks, which meant you told the librarian what you wanted and the librarian went to get it. That being an option, according to the state, why don't we try that as a first step? That our patrons with appointments are allowed to come in, talk with the librarian. Since I've been volunteering at the library, Jean has shown me how Koha works. We can check a patron's circulation history and see the kinds of things that they've read and use that as a jumping off point to pull some things from the shelf for them to let them look. And that way we don't have the circulation issue of moving people around, how long they stand in one place, making sure they're all going in the right direction, that they're touching things we don't know what they're touching. There's much more control with that. That would seem to me to be a step. And if that works well, then we see where we can go slightly beyond that. And Ben, I agree with you 100% that as things ease across the country in terms of closures, we do have to be aware that people may be bringing in germs that we don't want. And we have to do these baby steps and be very vigilant and make sure that everything stays as sanitized as possible. Okay, so now I'm gonna be quiet and somebody else say something.
So can I,
Oh.
I'm gonna say something. Oh, are you going, Mark? You go. You were waiting. You go ahead.
Well, what I was actually thinking is to sort of reverse engineer the steps. So say, what are the things that would be the most difficult or things that we don't want to immediately do? I would put computer use as a later step, personally. That was just my suggestion in terms to sort of reverse engineer how we would get this. But I do really like Carrie's suggestion of that sort of old-fashioned way of asking the librarian to pull items down to then browse, because I think that would just give us a lot more control. And I do think that that's a reasonable first step. But yeah, there are other things that we know should not be a first step that we could kind of list those and then get to our
Yes.
So I actually think of a computer as a first step though, because I
Okay.
think about the people who might not have access to a computer at all. And Jean and I were talking this morning, and it seems like a really reasonable way to spend a little bit of money to have Chromebook is like $85. We could see people sit on the porch and use the Chromebook, you know, and it would be very easy to keep track of, to sanitize, I mean, that's super simple, and they're really inexpensive. So
Okay.
that because I feel like a lot of libraries do have these computers and laptops that they can lend out, but we don't. But a Chromebook is a great option. We could even get a keyboard for it if someone wanted that. Because I do think that computer use, you know, right now people can check out books curbside, but
Sure.
if you don't have a computer, you really, maybe you haven't been able to, you know, email grandma or whatever. And so I also think that's a really easy first step to reach out to the community, whereas like straight to the computer, sanitize the computer, no browsing, no using the bathroom. It makes it like a doable, simple step that keeps everyone safe.
I'm totally convinced. My biggest concern with computer use is the sanitization and the contact surface. That really is my only thinking. I'm not actually familiar with a Chromebook. Is it like a laptop or is it a tablet or?
Yeah, it's like a tablet. Like it's like a really inexpensive tablet.
That would be pretty simple to sanitize then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a great idea. I'm in support of that idea.
Yes, because the keyboards, I think, are really problematic as far as cleaning.
Yeah.
I had a couple of things that I wanted to, on Carrie, you said something about 10 people. Do we know that we would even be able to have 10 people based on our size? I think that's, that would need to come before we decide how many people can even be there, whether it's just the staff or staff and trustees, or eventually staff, trustees, and patrons. That would be something we would have to check out first.
What's the square footage of each room?
I think,
Because if we were to say 6 feet of social distancing, if it's we could do the math to figure out how many people you could fit in each room to maintain 6 feet apart.
yeah.
But it isn't even just that. There are other limitations besides just the 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the size of the building. It depends on, it's up to 10, but it's possible that we would not be able to even have 10. I know they were talking about, a couple people asked questions. They share their building, and because they share their building with another office, everybody has to add up to the 10. But that's assuming that your square footage, and it seems to me there was something else. I'd have to go back and look at the notes besides just the square footage and the 6 feet. But I'm not sure. 25%
of the occupancy limit.
Occupancy. That was the third thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think, realistically speaking, it would feel safe to anybody working there to have more than one family group in at a time. I think, like, if we're talking about number of patrons in, like, I'm just imagining Jean working and, trying to police that, like, are they keeping their mask on? What are they touching? What are those people touching? Like, I'm just thinking of, like, the sanity that would involve. That would be really difficult to monitor. I feel like if you're going to let anyone in, it should be like one family group at a time.
And that should certainly be a phase down in the plan, not immediate.
Totally.
My feeling is about the plan is they recommended that at the beginning, the plan is just to get the staff in. And even to start, I think maybe our first step, not even so much to have the staff in, but say for a week of getting the plan in place, then have phase 2 have the staff at the library.
Can you say that again?
Jean, and Dan, I have a question for you folks. How are the patrons reacting to the limit of curbside only? Have they expressed extreme, interest in coming into the library and looking for their own books, or what's the public feedback?
You go first.
Well, no, they haven't. They've been very appreciative of the curbside. Go ahead.
That being said, a number of people find the catalog either.
I can't hear you, Ben.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. A number of the people have expressed that using the catalog is difficult for them, or they're not sure what to do. And the truth is, a lot of times people find books by, sniffing around and kind of just trying to figure out. They know it when they see it. So I think we're seeing a lower volume than would happen if people had an opportunity to come in and interact. Because I think we're just less of a presence if people have to think of what they want
ahead of time.
Ahead of time. I don't know if maybe Jean has had, we've had exchanges with people like, what kind of things are you interested in? Can we brainstorm? But I think it just seems farther away to people. That's my impression, that we're probably seeing a lot less than if we could have a little more personal conversation. Whatever, admittedly, there are risks, to doing that, but
well, Jean, Jean has always done that for patrons. They'll come in and Jean, you know what people like. So you go right to the shelf and you pull books that you know that they will want, and then they check them out and good, we're good. You know, some of us don't have those skills, but you certainly do with the patrons. So if we had appointments, then people could come in and you could discuss what they like, and then you or whoever is working can go to the shelf and pull those type of materials for them to, you know, see if they like.
What do you think of?
Well, I think that the appointment with the you know, very small group of family or whatever, because if you trace the path of folks in the library, it would look like a bee going to flowers.
Mm.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
So
Well, yes, but if they were free to go to the stacks, how people are looking for books and maintaining 6 feet distance,
I agree.
that's it. It doesn't compute.
Yeah.
So I think based on a lot of the comments, maybe one of the things that we should think about is these are all great ideas and they all sound like possibilities, but which phase do they fit into? So maybe one of the things we could do today is to come up with, like, what is phase 1? That's what we're right now. What do we need to do to move to phase 2? Because based on Ben's research and the fact that we're already allowing books to go out and have sanitation in place, I feel like that's our phase 1, and maybe we should do that for another week or so while we come up with our plan. And then phase 2 could be to have the staff there. And then while we're doing this, we can be working on when we want to implement all of those other things, because we're obviously not going to be doing that in a week.
We're going to need more than 1 week to do this, to even come up with a plan.
So phase 1 then would probably be to come up with a plan.
So the state provides you with like a blank, and I printed it out, but obviously that won't do us any good because it's the computer.
Can you hold it really close to the camera?
Everyone read 1 page at a time. I printed it out, and it's like they basically have like a 6-page form where you fill in the blanks, and they have lots of examples of what other libraries have already done. Like this one I printed out is the Rutland Free Library's example of their COVID-19 response plan. And so it really lays it out for you. And you're welcome. I mean, it's on the Vermont Department of Libraries webpage. It's easy to find. And they went over this in this meeting yesterday on how to do it. And I think that what a lot of people were saying was that by June 15th, a lot of people felt like June 15th, we would have a little bit better of knowledge of opening up the state, was how that was going. Then some people were considering the next phase of their library, which would be appointments. So that was the vibe I was getting from a lot of the people who spoke during the meetings yesterday. So I don't know if that's helpful, but it makes it easy to like fill out a plan, like, you know, of exactly how this can be done.
It's good to have a template.
I'm going to ask a favor. I have a very poor connection with this meeting. I'm catching maybe every other word, maybe every third word. If you're not speaking, could you mute, please? Maybe that'll help me. Otherwise, I'm going to, as it is, I'm going to have to go back to the recording and see what was said before I can make any recommendations, because I'm missing most of the conversations. And I'm sorry. I've asked EC Fiber to.
Carrie, there is a possibility, there's a phone number you could call for audio if that would be helpful. That's perfectly doable. I can give you that number if you'd like, but if it sounds too crazy, don't worry about it. So yeah, so people can join the audio by phone. That's totally an option.
I think I think a first step should be getting that computer, getting that tablet, and making that available to the public. Because the more I think about it, there might be people who have gone a very long time without internet access. I don't know, but I think that that's a reasonable first step.
I think that what we need to do is we need to have the plan. And what you're saying is in the plan, you feel that the next, I mean, phase one obviously is to come up with a plan. I think that the second phase might be just staff. And so that would maybe be phase three then, if you're thinking that. But I think what we need to do is decide who is going to write the plan, because we certainly can't do it on Zoom with all of us. So I think that, and then take all of these ideas that everyone has about what should be in which phase, and then present it at a Zoom meeting, and then discuss it again, now that we've gotten some ideas about what we think might be in the phases.
I'm comfortable with that, Billy.
I would be happy to work on that plan. I don't know, would you want to work with me, Carrie, or is there someone else that, but I don't think we can all of us do it at the same time.
No, Billy, I'd be delighted. Does anyone have any objections?
Carrie, could you repeat that? I didn't catch your question.
Okay. Billy volunteered to work out phases, plan so that we can set it up and work it in phases. She asked if I would help her with that. I said I'd be delighted to, and then I asked if anyone had any objections. We would come up with a plan and then present it to the trustees and staff and
What role would any of the staff have in formulating the plan? Maybe you can't hear me. I'm sorry.
No, we can.
Okay.
We can hear you. Well, I think what we can do today. Mark expressed his interest in having the computers be the first one. Mariah gave us some information. You talked about the appointments. And so I think certainly Carrie and I would like as much input as you have. And then once we put the plan together, we can all discuss it. And then certainly it would be up to you to make sure that the plan fits with what you feel is doable and acceptable to you. It's just that we have to have something to start with before we can really, I mean, otherwise we're all just throwing out ideas, and unless we actually have something to look at and we can say, okay, here's what we have, let's talk about it. You might not want that to be the first step. Someone else might have another suggestion about how one of the phases could work differently. But what I think we need to do is come up with a plan first so that we can actually look at it and then decide what we need to do to modify it.
I think what would be the classic way to move forward now, it could be like a hybrid, but usually I think the director would bring something to trustees. So maybe there's a way you can work in Jean to the discussion.
Sure.
And conceivably you could put up a Google sheet so people could see it and that they could ask questions as you went or before the meeting kind of thing, so that would allow a little bit of a spectrum rather than not all of us have a lot of, there would be less isolation of like, oh, I can't think of what I want to say, but we'll wait till the next meeting. We could sort of have input in between.
Right. Well, that sounds like a good idea. As we're working on it, like, it could be a very basic framework. And then as we work on it, continue to have it up there so that anyone can at any time make comments or suggestions about it.
I think it's paramount that Jean be involved in the drafting of the plan.
Okay.
the three of you, and then, you know, put it up on a Google Doc or however you want, and then we can all, you know, give input and then really formalize it at our next meeting. Now, our next regular scheduled meeting is the 8th, which is only a week from Monday. So I don't know if we
This
want to meet
probably-
before then. The 8th of
Yeah.
June is our regular scheduled meeting. Do we want to meet before then
I would think so.
to have our plan in place? Because that's a whole evening's discussion right there, never mind the rest of the regular meeting.
Exactly. I'm not sure that, well, let's see, I don't know if we have time to have another meeting to start with, but if Jean and Carrie and I work together, we certainly could have a good start on it.
I have a suggestion. I've been going into the library Monday, Wednesday, or Friday morning to volunteer. If Jean is agreeable to this, I would come in Monday morning and she and I could brainstorm what she envisions for the plans. And then I would take that information and work with Billy and see if we can develop something that we can then share out as a Google Doc for all to comment, edit, etc. Does that seem reasonable?
Possible.
Jean, do you have any objections to doing that? Does the timing work for you?
No, I don't have any objections. I'd kind of like and we can do this informally, if Mariah and Ben and I can kind of do some brainstorming from a staff point of view before Monday, then we'd sort of have some of that thought to put in on Monday morning. So I'll see what we could work out as far as
It doesn't
staff
have to
input.
be that I come in on Monday. I just pick.
Well, that's fine if you come in on Monday. We'll just try to have some thoughts together from staff perspective before then.
Would Wednesday be a better day? Would Wednesday be a better day?
Wednesday could be better. My Tuesday's shot with a complicated dentist appointment. We could try, okay, possibly Wednesday, but Mariah and Ben and I could sort of get a staff perspective to present. It may not be visibly different, but it would just be a good idea from to get that kind of together, because there's a lot to doing what we're doing now. It's a lot more labor intensive, and so I'm probably conservative about how fast all the things need to happen, but I would be interested to talk to Ben and Mariah and actually Marcia. She'll have some opinions just because she's not been in. She has rheumatoid arthritis, and that's going to really affect her perspective on what someone with not a disability exactly, but a lot impairment that is sensitive to something like COVID-19. But
Jean, I think one of the things too is coming up with the phases is one thing, but what you brought up is we hadn't really talked at all about the time frame that each of those phases would take. So I think there are really two things here then. What would be the steps, and then certainly you would be the one to know what the timing of those steps might take.
well, if Carrie and I can talk on Wednesday morning, that would be great, and I'll see what we can put together of staff input before then, so that'll be a ways toward getting what we need.
Since you have dental work on Tuesday, please let me know if Wednesday turns out to be uncomfortable for you and you can do this Friday.
No, I hadn't thought of that at all. I will. I wasn't thinking it was going to be anything at all.
I don't have the agenda in front of me. There was a matter of the hours that you and I wanted to bring up at some point, just a slight
Right.
tweak. And maybe that can be addressed later. I just didn't want to lose it.
What hours? What are you talking about, Ben?
Well,
Yeah,
basically the hours of 9 to noon and 2 to 5 were what we're saying we're doing that for now. And my observation was that possibly if it would seem all the same to everybody else, doing 9 to noon and 3 to 6 might not only be available to people a little bit more, but also Jean would get a chance to actually sort of decompress in between the two times because it's so close. We throw lunch together in between. It would give her a little time to decompress in between, or whoever was going back down, or whoever was serving. Just if that sounded okay, the flexibility of having the 3 hours between noon and the next time. Jean tends to stay longer than she needs to anyway. So
I don't see that would really change anything as far as what you're doing now. It would just be more convenient for you. And it might actually even be more convenient for people who have to work because might be after they came home from work, they could call. I don't have any problem with you changing.
Yeah, I don't think any of us do. Whatever's the most comfortable for you folks, because you're doing all the work. You're there, that all the many hours. Whatever you think is best for your convenience. And
say it again.
Thank you.
Sorry, it turns out you can temporarily mute using the space bar, but I haven't always gotten it right. So I hope you haven't missed too much of what Jean said.
whether the rest of you, Mark and you and Carrie and Mariah, haven't weighed in too much here about changing the hours right off the bat.
I think it's their call. I think that I agree with the slightly later hours that might be helpful to those folks coming home from work as opposed to trying to fit it in around their work. Because there are still people who are doing the 8 to 5 or whatever, 9 to 5 or so that 3 to 6 works for me. As long as we give as many hours as we can, I'm not sure that the community will be up in arms if we tweak when we set those hours. So as long as we post it, I think the community will approve.
So we could say starting June 1st, we can send an email out and put other postings the same.
And then we can keep those hours when we're actually doing appointments. We can keep those hours that for the appointments. Yes.
That could be a big help for someone coming home from work to have an appointment at 5:30, something like that. All right, do we all feel that we have a plan to move forward with this? I don't get the feeling that we're bringing up new material to stay on the Zoom meeting. I'll be meeting, Jean will be meeting with staff, and she'll bring her information to me. We'll discuss it Wednesday or Friday, depending on how her mouth feels. And then I will contact Billy, and we will go from there, creating something in writing that we can share with the community, with the state, with anybody who's interested in reading our plans.
Yeah.
Are we good?
I do have a
That idea.
question, if we want to discuss this now or wait down the road. What has been mentioned, and we're all aware of the fact that some people, other people have keys to the building. And are we going to limit accessibility, or will we be recording when we start the health surveys for the staff? Will we need to include people who might be in the building doing something else? I'm thinking primarily the Historical Society archives, which the executive committee would like to be able to access the archives for critical research. So we wanted to talk about it now or later.
According to the meeting, all of the things that are required of the library are also required of anybody using the same building. So that what you're saying is if they do use it, then they would be under the same, and because they talked about even men coming into work or people coming into work, contractors or cleaners, that they are also required to do all of the logs and health checks.
Right. So that's something we'll have to discuss with other people that have keys and do come into the building for, I'm saying, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to make those people aware of how things are going to change, or should have changed. Some things should have changed already. I mean, how many keys do we have out there? Jean, you know who has keys.
Along that line, we would need to determine, do those folks have to wear gloves if they are not entering the library space? Even if they are wearing masks, would they be required to wear gloves?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure yes, because I've discussed it a little bit with other members. I'm talking Historical Society here. We wouldn't be coming into the actual library portion. We'd be into the basement, into the archives, that we have already discussed that we will absolutely wear mask and gloves working down there. That's certainly not any kind of issue, but we need to keep track of who's coming in and when they're coming in, because if there's already people in the library, in the building, using the library facilities, those people are included in the number of people that we are going to determine as the total limit at any one time.
In addition to the log as when they come in and where they come in, they said that it was very important to indicate which portions of the building the people had been in. So that if you had someone to come in and work downstairs, that would be included in the log so that you would know that they had not gone upstairs. Or if someone came in to fix something, which part of the building were they in?
Right.
But the log was one of the things that they felt was very, very important.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. Do we want to limit people's activity in there right now, or do we want to wait until we have a plan in place and then, let other people know what we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it?
I think we want to go with the plan first. I think it covers us in terms of liability, which was something else that was discussed in this meeting on Thursday. It's something that we can discuss as we're creating our plan, because part of the piece of this is that even with masks and gloves, we have to be aware of what areas were used and touched so that everything gets sanitized. That was drilled home to us pretty heavily on the Thursday meeting.
Fern, you can probably compile a proposal because well, Mark does too, about the number of people that would be sometimes needing to work down there in the archives. So certainly we would want to make whatever was allowed to include what was typically necessary on their part.
Right. Well, the executive committee, which is Mick, the president, myself, vice president, Fred was in there the other day delivering something. And also Elaine, the secretary. So we're the executive committee, but Fred did come in yesterday or the day before, Jean, to deliver that file cabinet.
Jean, if you are answering Fern, we can't hear you. Jean, I think you're speaking, but I don't hear you.
Here, you press the space bar. Sorry.
Well, Fern can tell us, and she can do whatever she needs to do to gather that information. The number of people that are going to at various points need to be working in the archives. The executive committee may be working down there, but there may be, I gathered that Elaine and Nancy were helping. So we would just need to know so that we could, if there's a log, but we would need to know how many are planning to be there in terms of the library's plan, since our plan has to include their needs.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, have we set up the basics so that we're comfortable with moving forward? That Jean will meet with her staff to discuss what their thoughts are as we start planning going forward. Then Jean and I would discuss that, and then I would take all of that information, and Billy and I would try to put together in writing something that reflects all of that, with the knowledge that it is open for editing by the people who are in.
That sounds.
All right, not hearing. Oh, thumbs up works. Not hearing any objections, then let's call this meeting adjourned with the proper requests and move forward, because I think we're starting to get the momentum we need to safely plan and keep our library vibrant and viable. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I just wanted to say something really happy before we all hang up. That I just want to let everyone know that, like, I'm like this close to going down and setting up the story walk at the fairgrounds. So that's going to be super fun, I feel like, for everybody. And so I get the Velcro next week, and the story walks are available for borrowing now from other libraries. And I think it's going to be like a really fun experience for everyone. So just wanted to leave everybody on a positive, happy note.
Good job, Mariah.
Very good.
We love it. Excellent.
Mariah, let me know if you need help with that.
Yeah, likewise, Mariah. We're happy to, do whatever we can to facilitate that for
All right, you guys will be in charge of putting the stakes in. I'm just kidding.
Seriously, whatever you need help with. And
Okay,
I'll bring Birdie along. She
Yeah. All right, I'll let you know.
I can hammer from 6 feet.
They even gave me permission to drill into the fences. I was like, don't you think
Oh
that's
my heavens.
over the top? But
Yeah, we all want to come help you. Especially at the big
exciting.
fairgrounds, yeah.
All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Need a second. All those in favor, thumbs up. Bye all.